Dare to enter Crow's Quill's books, where tales of forgotten realms and fearless souls come alive. Today's journey, Perigord, Chapters 7 to 8 by Mark Lindsay. Will you uncover the truth hidden in the shadows? Chapter 7. The institution that was Perigord High School. At first glance appeared more like an ancient monastery than a modern learning facility. The main building was built from stone with high, narrow windows that looked like the eyes of a disapproving ant peering down at something distasteful. Perched on the top corners of the roof were stone gargoyles, each one lionesque in appearance, both noble and powerful. Surrounding the building were ornate topiary trees in hedges sculpted with obsessive perfection, and inside were large stone steps leading toward the entrance. Walking the path leading into the school's grounds, his backpack slung over one shoulder, Jason kept his head down as he passed groups of students. Kids mingling within their assorted cliques, laughing, talking, and generally doing nothing in particular. Some stopped and watched him pass. A few whispered and pointed in his direction. Ignoring the stairs, he made his way up and through the double doors. The interior was a mass of activity as both teachers and students moved about, either coming from or going to classes. For a brief moment he was caught up in the swell of movement, not knowing what to do first. 2 girls pushed past him as they made their way to class. This seemed to snap Jason from his reverie, and looking around he saw a sign, Administration Office. Jason followed the arrows in its direction. Making his way along the corridor, he stopped as he passed the school's trophy display case. A black and yellow striped tape was draped across reading, "Do not cross line," preventing anyone from getting too close. The cabinet had been smashed up. Bits of glass and timber littered the ground, and the trophies and plaques within were busted as well. The timber stand located at its center was empty. Jason could only guess what it was supposed to hold. After giving his details to the office staff, he was instructed to sit and wait for an interview with the vice principal. Jason sat outside the office, fiddling impatiently with the cord on his hoodie. After a while, a female voice from within the office ordered him in. Inside the office was decorated in simple decor, framed degrees and letters of thanks adorning the walls. Behind the desk, a small potted plant sat in the far corner of the room, and a placard on the desk read, Ms. Stonewall. The vice principal was a pleasant surprise. At 5'9" and weighing 110 pounds of lean muscle, she was a stunning vision of perfection. Honey blonde hair flowed down her slender neck, cascading over her shoulders. Ms. Stonewall's eyes were a clear blue that possessed a hint of silver in the right light. Her lips glistened, full and alluring. Jason found himself staring, entranced by her beauty. He flushed red with embarrassment. She appeared not to notice Jason's reaction as she flicked through a large manila folder bearing his name. "Mr. Page, please take a seat," she said curtly. Jason moved quickly across the room and took a seat opposite her desk. "It says here you're a B average student who excelled in history and were on your school's boxing team," Ms. Stonewall read. "Yes, ma'am," Jason replied. "It also says you have been suspended 13 times, all for fighting," she continued. Jason remained calm. "Not a very lucky number for me," he said, trying his best to be charming. Then, upon seeing her no-nonsense icy stare, added lamely, "That's a lot, isn't it?" "I'm afraid that's not going to be an option for you here, despite your extracurricular activities at your previous school. We have a zero tolerance towards physical confrontations and bullying. Do you understand?" Ms. Stonewall asked. "Yes, ma'am, I have no plans of causing any trouble here," he replied, giving her his most angelic smile. Ms. Stonewall smiled back. "I'm glad to hear that, Mr. Page. You'll find we pride ourselves on our academic achievements as well as our sporting accomplishments at Perigord High. I'm afraid that our boxing team hasn't fared well in the past few years, but maybe with your experience and help, we can rectify that problem." Miss Stonewall's smile was like that of a predator who knew when it had its prey cornered. Jason swallowed thickly. "I'm always ready for a challenge," he said, although he didn't feel like it at that moment. "Good. If there's nothing you wish to ask me, I'll let you be on your way. See Gretchen at the front office and she'll give you your timetable, and a note explaining your tardiness for your first class. Thank you, Mr. Page." Jason stood up just as the phone rang. Ms. Stonewall answered. He was about to reply, but Miss Stonewall dismissed him with a wave of her hand. He walked out, looking back at the beautiful Miss Stonewall, and thought what a cold bitch she was. He carefully closed the door behind him. After getting his timetable and note from the front office, he spent the next 15 minutes attempting to navigate his way to his first class. English with Mr. Rosenberg, a highly animated individual who greeted Jason warmly on arrival. Standing around 5'6" and weighing a portly 220 pounds, he had receding, frizzing hair which an old friend of Jason's would have described as a Jewfro. He wore black-rimmed glasses and an even blacker goatee beard. Jason was invited to introduce himself to the class, which he reluctantly agreed to with a forced smile. After giving a brief history about himself and his mother, he made his way to an empty seat. Just before he sat down, he noticed a girl seated at the back of the classroom, watching him closely. The girl seemed larger than life, dressed in dark clothing, most notably a large, oversized army trench coat. She was sitting cross-legged, and Jason could see the toe of a black combat boot sticking up. She wore her long, jet-black hair braided, and her pale complexion made her dark eyeliner even more prominent than it was already. Large gray eyes regarded him frankly, making Jason almost feel naked. The moment was brief, but intense. He sat down and faced the front. The class had been discussing the book, The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton. Mr. Rosenberg made a lame joke that Jason might have some input, as he was currently an outsider as well. This was greeted with a large, audible groan from the class. However, this kind of endeared him to Jason, and having already read the book, he felt comfortable with the subject matter. Without rising, Jason addressed Mr. Rosenberg. "The Outsiders is the story about an adolescent boy, Ponyboy Curtis, and the way he deals with right and wrong in a world that he thinks makes him an outsider. He deals with this by writing an essay about the events of his past 2 weeks," Jason said. "Very good. I'm glad someone here has read the novel. Would anyone else care to add anything to Mr. Page's synopsis?" Mr. Rosenberg asked. The class was silent, and Jason could feel all eyes in the room upon him. Luckily, the school bell rang, ending the uncomfortable silence. As kids scrambled to depart, Mr. Rosenberg struggled to be heard over the chaos. "Remember, you only have 1 week left to write your report on this book. Have it on my desk by next Monday. End of play. No excuses." The class appeared to ignore his diatribe as they exited. Jason packed his bag and readied to leave when a figure shouldered past him, making him drop his books. He looked up to see the girl in the trench coat. She turned and regarded him, her eyes boring into his. Jason was wrong earlier. Her eyes weren't gray, but a sparkling silver. A smile appeared on her face. "Sorry about that. Didn't see you there," she said arrogantly, and before Jason could respond, she strode away. He was left standing there, his books at his feet, the image of her dazzling eyes imprinted on his brain. Mr. Rosenberg snapped him from his trance. "I'm very pleased to have you in my class, young man," he said enthusiastically, shaking Jason's hand. "I don't expect you to do the essay, due to your obvious knowledge of the subject, and the fact that you have only just arrived, but next week we'll be studying Great Expectations. Have you read it?" Jason shook his head in reply. "Excellent. I hope you have a good first day," Mr. Rosenberg said with a smile, before turning back to his desk. Jason threw his bag over his shoulder and headed for the door, thinking, "I hope so too." Jason's day only got worse from that moment on. Following English, he had algebra with Mr. Flanagan, a tall, skinny man in his early 40s, wearing a pinched face and a hawk-like nose. He seemed to derive enjoyment from the suffering of his students. Jason could literally hear the minute hand on the classroom's clock tick slowly by. After algebra, there was a double period of biology. Jason wasn't sure if it was the dissecting of the frog or something he had eaten, but he had started to feel queasy, and warm sweat beads stood out on his forehead, as he struggled to focus on the scalpel and the amphibian. He had to take deep breaths as his heart raced. His senses seemed somehow amplified. The smell of the preserving agent and the other chemicals was intense. Even the stainless steel benches gave off a strong aroma. His vision seemed sharper as every detail of the frog appeared so vivid and clear. It was overwhelming. He was about to make the first incision on the frog when a nauseous lump formed in his stomach. He lurched, excusing himself to go to the bathroom, praying he wouldn't vomit in front of everyone. His walk down the hallway became a race against time. He barely made it as he kicked open the first toilet stall and dropped to his knees, violently throwing up into the bowl until there was nothing but dry heaving. Jason leaned back against the door, getting his breath. After several minutes, he was able to get to his feet. Wobbly at first, he had to steady himself against the wall before staggering on rubbery legs towards the sink. He was startled to see his pale, weary reflection staring back. He washed his face and rinsed his mouth, struggling to concentrate through a splitting headache. Jason decided against going home, wanting to see his first day through. Thankfully, his teacher hadn't taken much notice of his timely absence and reappearance. Jason felt weak and nauseous during the remainder of the lesson. Having decided to skip lunch, he opted to sit outside and try to enjoy the fresh air and sunshine. He was almost feeling 100% by the end of lunch. Last period of the day was gym class. The teacher, Mr. Fields, was a huskily built man in his early 30s, with sandy-colored hair and a ruddy complexion, giving him the appearance of having the flu. There were rumors that Jack, Jim, and Gilby had contributed to his flushed skin. Mr. Fields gave the class laps of the court, his booming voice never stopping as he berated everyone on their apparent lack of enthusiasm, stamina, and general poor conditioning. After laps, they conducted a beep test with Jason outlasting everyone, even with the persisting throb in his head. His performance didn't impress the teacher, though, who chided the whole class on their weak performance. Mr. Fields nominated 2 boys from the class to be team captains for a game of basketball. Each captain selected one of 2 piles of colored bibs. Then, taking turns, the captains picked their teams. The selection process seemed to take forever, with Jason being picked last on Team Blue. The red team captain, a large, muscular boy, appeared to be the teacher's favorite. Jason didn't like the way he smugly strutted around as Mr. Fields joked with him about taking it easy on the blue team. Both teacher and student laughed. Looking about, Jason had an uneasy feeling about this match, as it was evident that the more athletic kids were on the red team. Jason sighed and thought the sooner they started, the sooner they would finish. Mr. Fields blew the whistle and the game began. Jason was surprised to find that despite his team's apparent lack of muscle, they had solid skills and were the first to have points on the board, much to the annoyance of the red team. This wasn't helped by Jason scoring 3 more baskets in quick succession. The red team's captain had lost his smugness and was visibly pissed. Jason watched him, conferring with another player from his team, a skinny boy with dirty blonde hair and acne scarring. They both smiled slyly and bumped their fists together in some secret understanding as they returned into position. As Mr. Fields put the ball up, it was apparent that the red team were now going to employ less than sportsmanlike methods. Within minutes, the red team's captain had tripped one of Jason's teammates, causing him to roll his ankle. The boy was carried from the court and taken to the nurse's station. This was only the beginning. The game had now become full contact, with Mr. Fields seemingly turning a blind eye to any illegal activity caused by the red team. The next incident occurred minutes before the halftime break, with the acne-riddled boy throwing an elbow into the face of a chubby boy who went down with a cry of pain and a bloody nose. He was taken to the side and given an ice pack. It was obvious he wouldn't be returning in the next half. The 2 teams went their separate ways during halftime. Jason's teammates were breathing hard, having worked up a decent sweat. They all gulped greedily on their water bottles, attempting to rehydrate before the second act kicked off. Jason was clearly pissed with the events in the first half and asked one of his teammates, a tall, nervous-looking boy, why the gym teacher wasn't doing anything about the other team's disregard of the rules. The nervous boy spoke quietly, so only Jason could hear. Mr. Fields isn't big on creating trouble for himself, especially where those two are concerned. He pointed covertly in the direction of the other team's captain and the boy with the acne scarring. The big fella is Hector, Sheriff Rope's son. The one with the pizza face is Tiberius, Judge Slate's grandson. Kinda big wheels around here. I'm Rory, he said, extending his hand toward Jason, who took it, shaking it twice. I'm Jason, he said. Pleased to meet you. Don't let it get you down. It's just the way things go, Rory said. I'm not a big one for rules myself, Jason said grimly. It's not worth it, Jason, Rory replied, exasperated. The rest of the blue team had moved in closer around the two as they nodded their agreement. Jason slowly looked them all in the eyes, a wry smile spreading across his face. Hey, accidents happen, Jason said as Mr. Fields blew his whistle, and both teams made their way back onto the court for the second half. The game began without incident until Rory got off a brilliant three-point shot. Then Hector and Tiberius continued with their brazen lack of good conduct. Jason's head had really started to throb again, and he decided to put Plan A into action. Despite the red team's dirty tactics, Jason's team were quick and able, easily handing the ball from teammate to teammate. It eventually found itself in Jason's hands. Tiberius was on him in defense, physically jostling him and attempting to steal the ball. Exactly what Jason hoped he would do. Jason attempted to dribble past Tiberius unsuccessfully. Tiberius covered him on each pass. Knowing that he wouldn't get a better opportunity, kept his back to Tiberius, and when Tiberius made his next attempt, Jason pivoted, pretending to pass the ball, and brought his elbow into the face of the oncoming Tiberius. There was an audible cracking sound, and Tiberius hit the ground, his nose a bloody mess. A frightened-looking Mr. Fields helped Tiberius from the court, where he took a seat next to the other boy, nursing an ice pack. Mr. Fields reminded everyone about safety on the court, glaring the whole time at Jason. The game recommenced. Both teams were conscious of the tension building between Jason and Hector. As players on both sides tried to distance themselves from any confrontation, Jason and Hector looked for an opening to get even with each other. With minutes left on the clock, Jason was left holding the ball with Hector defending. "Come on, faggot!" Hector taunted. Jason tried to get past without luck, as Hector was on him like glue. "Think you're pretty special, don't ya?" Hector spat, a mean grin plastered on his face. Jason decided at that moment to give Hector the same medicine he had given Tiberius. The move was going to plan, except at the last instant Hector ducked, avoiding the blow. He lashed out, grasping the ball, and the two of them were locked in a tug of war. "Nice try, knob jockey, but you'll have to move faster than that," Hector growled, his confidence growing. Jason stared Hector down, refusing to release his hold on the ball, both boys straining for purchase. The court had gone quiet. Everyone, including Mr. Fields, was watching the battle for dominance. Jason's head was throbbing, and his vision had begun to blur. Even Hector's taunts seemed to be coming from far off in the distance. The whole incident had been going for a few seconds, but it felt more like hours. His strength was beginning to ebb. I refuse to be beaten by this imbecile, Jason thought. Then, as if a switch had been flicked, it all stopped. The headache, the blurred vision and fatigue were now replaced with rage. A hot sensation began to flow through his body, starting in his chest and working its way out to his limbs. Like an electric pulse, it reached his fingers and toes, and then it was gone. Jason could now feel power coursing through his veins, an almost bestial strength. He strained, pulling on the ball and Hector, whipping them around in a 180-degree turn, like a hammer thrower at the Olympics. Jason performed the task with ease, and much to everyone's amazement, Hector was able to maintain his grip on the ball until the very last moment, when he was launched across the floor, landing several feet away from Jason, sliding to a halt near the feet of Mr. Fields. The teacher stood there, mouth agape, looking first at Hector, then Jason, then back towards Hector. Then, as if on cue, the final bell buzzed. No one moved. Then a boy's voice broke the silence. "Did you see that?" the voice squeaked. This seemed to shake Mr. Fields from his stupor. He attempted to regain his authority within the class. "Nothing to see, boys. Go and hit the showers. We're done for the day." The teacher's voice was a croak, then gruff. No one moved. Everyone seemed rooted to the floor. "Now!" Mr. Fields barked, and all the boys on the court jumped in surprise and bolted for the door. All except Hector, who was still lying on the court floor, unhurt but stunned, and Jason, who was looking down at his own hands, wide-eyed and shaken. Mr. Fields helped Hector to his feet and escorted him from the gym floor, casting a quick glance at Jason, his eyes still wide. They left, leaving Jason there alone. By the time Jason had made his way to the locker room, it was deserted. He sat down and looked up to see a message scrawled on his locker. "You're dead." Jason didn't look too concerned, but sighed nonetheless. "Great, Mum will be thrilled. Making friends, staying out of trouble," he thought, as he went to clean up, remaining under the shower for a very long time. Chapter 8. Jason arrived home with what felt like an insatiable hunger. It was almost nauseating. The moment he stepped through the door, his senses were assaulted by the aroma of his mother's cooking. He started salivating as he made his way to the kitchen. Helen was in the process of serving dinner when Jason appeared through the door. He stared, ravenous, at the food brought to him. "Sit down, love. Dinner's ready," Helen said. Jason didn't need to be told twice. He practically leapt into his seat, viewing the meal before him. Smoky ribs, corn on the cob, sweet potato, and snow peas. His favorite meal. "What's the occasion?" Jason asked as he tucked into his meal. Helen regarded her son fondly. "Just thought you might appreciate it after your first day at school." "Oh, I do," Jason said, through a mouthful of food. Jason pushed his plate away, licking the sticky marinade from his fingers, not caring about the grubby image he was projecting. "Glad you enjoyed the meal." "It was beautiful, Mum. I can't believe how hungry I was," he replied. Helen looked at him. "Hey, if you're still hungry, there's chocolate mud cake in the fridge. I picked it up today," Helen said. No sooner had she uttered those words than Jason was out of his chair and moving toward the fridge, returning with a small cardboard box and plates in his hands. Sitting back down opposite Helen, Jason worked intently serving up 2 slices and pushed one toward his mother, who shook her head. "Trying to watch my figure," she said. Jason shrugged and took the other larger slice, and all but inhaled it. Once it was gone, he reached out for the piece intended for Helen and devoured it as well. Helen watched in fascination. "Well, you are a growing boy. Just as long as you don't grow horizontally," she commented sarcastically. That night in bed, Jason tossed and turned, dreaming of wolves and fire, stars like beacons, and a blood-red moon. By the time he awoke, he could only remember flashes of the dream, nothing specific. Sitting up, he stretched and flexed his sore muscles. It was at that moment he noticed the large black book, Transmorphigation, lying at the foot of his bed. He frowned, wondering how the book had got there. A horrible black feeling began to spread through his stomach, filling him with dread. He shook the thoughts from his head as he sprang from the bed, snatching the book and tucking it away in his school bag, vowing to find out more about it. By the time Jason made his way downstairs, there was a note and money on the kitchen bench. "Had to see a man about a horse. Didn't want to wake you. Use the money for lunch. Love, Mum." Jason smiled warmly and pocketed the money. When he walked into the school grounds, it was evident that news of yesterday's scuffle with Hector had spread like wildfire. Ignoring the stares and whispers, he walked past the throng of students and entered the front doors. Jason's first few periods were relatively quiet. Computer technology with Mr. Chambers, an overweight, harried-looking man who watched the clock more than his students. This was followed by media studies, which Jason really enjoyed. The class discussed Stanley Kubrick films and his influence on modern pop culture. The teacher, Mr. Brown, a flamboyant young man, obviously enjoyed his subject matter, keeping his class engaged throughout the lesson. After media studies, Jason was on a bit of a high. Having forgotten the previous day's troubles, he made his way to the cafeteria for lunch. After collecting his tray, he shuffled along the meal line, his stomach grumbling in anticipation. "What do you want?" The lunch lady's voice came out in a raspy croak. She was obviously a 2-pack-a-day woman. He studied the selection on offer. A pale gray, watery-looking dish that could have been a stew. The other was something that looked vaguely deep-fried, possibly 3 weeks ago. Jason's stomach did a greasy backflip. "Hurry up, others are waiting," the lunch lady said impatiently. Jason sighed. "I think I'll stick with the fruit," he replied. "Whatever," the lunch lady said, shrugging, already looking toward her next customer. Jason continued down the line, grabbing a milk to go with his fruit, paying the cashier at the end. He looked around the dining hall for an available seat. Most tables were already full. After a moment of scanning, he spotted an empty table near the center of the room. It took him a minute of weaving past people and tables before he flopped into the spare seat and started his lunch. That seals today's tale in shadows. We hope Perigord has drawn you deeper into its enigma. Return soon to Crow's Quill's books, where the next chapter awaits, whispering secrets yet untold.